Thank you for tuning in to our podcast. We are coming to you from Holyoke, Massachusetts. I am your host, Kiri, and I am here with our local historian and founder of the Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Coleman. He offers both public and private tours of the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Massachusetts. Now, you actually give the tours yourself, right?
Oh, yes. I love doing it, the canal one for sure.
That's awesome. And so today you're going to be educating us on the Holyoke First Level Canal. So now what is the function of the First Level Canal?
All right, the first level canal, the Holyoke Canal system in Holyoke, Massachusetts, has one job only, and that's to deliver water to the second level canal. So it's 20 feet higher than that second level canal, and there are tunnels from the first level canal down to the second level canal. And the tunnels pass below the mills. And inside those tunnels, you'll have either right at the beginning or right at the end, you will have a big hole where the water drops downwards from the tunnel onto a turbine. And it's a hydromechanical turbine. And that hydromechanical turbine, hydro means water, mechanical means motion, will take the water's motion as it falls into the cup of the turbines. It will then turn the turbine, and the turbines are hooked up to belts, and the belts then cause the machinery inside the mills to turn. And those machineries could be, it could be looms if it's a fabric mill. It could be very powerful paper making equipment if it's a paper mill. So these incredible mills were taking all this power in from the first level's water. And the first level is a straight canal. It's 1 mile long, and it's about 25 feet deep by the end, about 30 feet deep at the start. It's about, at the beginning, about 120 feet across. At the end, it's about 90 feet across. It's staggered because they are losing water along the way into the tunnels. And in order to keep the level of the water at the same height, you need to compress inwards and upwards. And so the bottom comes upwards and the sides come inwards very gradually along the way. And this great system has worked for over 175 years starting this year. And
So now, what are some of the mills that are along the canal?
all right, along this first level canal, there's mills such as Farapaco, which made alpaca wool into clothing for people. There's a Skinner Silk Mill, which made silk products from the raw silk into like silk wedding dresses, silk shirts. There's also along the way the Parsons Paper Mill, which was the first paper mill in Holyoke, and of course they made paper. There's the Prentice Wire Company, which made wire. There are many small mills, so I won't go into too many of those, but there was also the Germanium Mill, which was a wool mill, and of course they made lots of wool and had a big contract with the government for Army woolen clothing. And a lot of these mills developed larger and larger. If these mills came in before 1895, then they had to use the canal's water because there was no industrial level production of electricity yet. From 1895 onwards, they would still use the canal for water power, but they didn't have to, so they could actually build above the first level canal and use the electricity from the generation of electric power that Holyoke was giving out. So it was gradually changing over. Now, the canal is so useful that most mills preferred to use the canal, of course, and it would just use the electricity for lights at night. But with the years, you would start saying, oh, to get regular power, it's better to use electricity. And that is what happened along the way.
So now, how has this canal been improved in the last half century?
All right, so this canal has been improved in the last century only by what they have done is they kept some of the turbines in place, even though they weren't necessarily using a lot of the hydromechanical. They use turbines now for hydroelectric. So some of the mills along the way, they may have died out, but the Holyoke Water Power Company and then Holyoke Gas Electric left the turbines there and put magnets around it and generated electricity from the turbines. So they became hydroelectric turbines. And so there's more and more of that. In fact, they're trying to get up to the level they once had. They were able to generate 100 megawatts of electricity in Holyoke in 1900. And by using the dam's electricity, by using solar panels, and by using these hydroelectric turbines inside the mill, and also using hydroelectric turbines inside of canal side power stations, they're getting up to the level of amount of power they once had 120 years ago. For a canal, that's incredible. And, I'm very proud of the system to be able to do that.
Okay, so now before we continue with the rest of our interview, for our listeners out there, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. There you can find his other podcasts along with videos of each of the stops on his various tours. Also past and present photos of the historic sites throughout. You can also set up private tours with him if you'd like. They make for great fun and educational activities for the family, or for those group outings for special occasions, or just a day out. You can email him at 4214 capital B at yahoo.com. Again, that's BOBCAT 4214 capital B at yahoo.com. So now, getting back to our interview. So, what will be the future of this canal?
Well, the future is happening, and it's already happened. It's become a lot of things, including entertainment and recreation along the canal, and history along the canal. And so you have things like canal walks along the first level canal, along the second level canal, and a planned third one along the third level canal. You even have a bridge along the second level canal, which allows pedestrians to go over. Also, you've had Holyoke Heritage State Park along the first level canal for almost 40 years, close to that. And so you're seeing the future, and the future is there's a changeover. A lot of the mills are changing over to low level production, or they're changing over to entertainment centers, recreation centers. A lot of mills also are changing over to residential. And you're probably going to have this over and over again. One thing I wish would happen to this first level canal, I wish the walkway, and this would have to be the Force project of walkways. I wish the walkway went up into Pulaski Park, because Pulaski Park is where the canal starts. And if you have a brick walkway up into that park, you can bring it right up to where the gatehouse is. And so people would have a beautiful walk from the gatehouse downwards along the first level canal to Heritage State Park, and then down the second level canal, and then hopefully one on the third level canal. So that's kind of the future, history and recreation along there. And hopefully.
And so now also along the canal there at the park, they have the merry-go-round, correct?
Yeah, so Heritage State Park itself along the first level canal has developed and changed through that almost 40 years that they've been around. And what they've done, they brought in other institutions. So the first level canal has become a place where you have a park, you have now a merry-go-round, which is the former Mountain Park Carousel, and it's now 97 years old. You also have the Volleyball Hall of Fame and the Children's Museum. You have brick walkways on both sides, and you have restaurants on the downside of the first level canal, and you have a residential place coming into the former Far Alpaca. And this year, since it's the sesquicentennial of Holyoke, 150th years since they're a city, have a charity, which is the merry-go-round, and people are willing to donate to them. Instead of giving me money, they give to a charity for young people. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Robert, for joining us and educating us a little bit on that. And again, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. Or if you'd like to set up private tours again, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And again, be sure to check out his upcoming schedule for 2024, his tours. That should be available soon. So thank you again for listening. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Holyoke, Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and I am here with our very own local historian and founder of the Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Cohn. He offers both public and private tours of the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Massachusetts. So now you actually give the tours yourself, right?
That's right. This is my favorite tour of the second level canal. It's a beautiful canal.
That is awesome. So today you are going to be educating us a little bit on the second level canal of Holyoke, correct? So what is the function of the second level canal?
Now, this canal is much more complex than the first level canal, which only distributed water downwards. The second level canal receives water on a great part of its canal. So and that part is mostly the part towards the west central part of the second level canal. It's the longest canal by far. It's 3 miles long compared to the other two being only 1 mile long. And so it develops lots of functions along the way. When it's near the upper parts of northern part of Main Street or Canal Street or Race Street, it is a receiver. It receives water from the second level canal. But the water can go towards the south or it can go towards the north. And so I'm talking about the water goes south first. So it fills up from the water from the first level canal, drifts downwards to the south, and at the very southern end of the second level canal, it has a new function. Its second function is to distribute the water into the third level canal. And of course, when it does that, you want to have tunnels in the way that are connected to the third level canal. And you want those tunnels to pass below the mills and to go into the turbine system. And again, generate hydroelectric or hydromechanical energy. And it does that. Now, at this end here, you have very many canals and tunnels, including one that's exposed. And it's very large, and it goes below the Merrick Mill number 1. And this allows it to take water from the second level canal, even though it's still about a quarter mile away from third level canal, but then send it back to the third level canal. So the third level canal is going to have multiple uses, but one of its uses is to receive water from the second level canal at its southern end. Now, that's 2 jobs. So the second level receives water, it distributes water. When it takes the bend around near the Vietnam Veteran Bridge, there's mills on its left-hand side and its right-hand side. And it's a U shape at that point, so you have the water that went to the south, and you have the water that bends around this U shape and goes then over towards the east and then towards the south. And remember, this is 3 miles long, so it can do lots of jobs. When it's at its northernmost reach and it's going through the U shape, it's now distributing water below the mills. And again, there's tunnels there. They take the water, they drop the water into turbines, make hydroelectric and hydromechanical energy. And those mills are using it. So the second level canal distributes water twice. And that's at the southern end when it meets the third level canal, and it's also at its northern U-shaped bend when it's meeting up close to the Connecticut River. And it continues doing that for about a mile and a quarter to a mile and a half. And it distributes it into a lot of paper mills. And this is the paper mill section, which gave Holyoke its name as the paper city. So now it keeps going and going, and towards its new southeast end, you now have to somehow take that water and do something with it. In the past, 100 years ago, it used to go over a spillway and then feed somewhat into the third level canal. But nowadays, it goes into the end of the second level canal, which is a half mile shorter, and it takes a left or eastward bend, and it goes out a tunnel below two mills and then out into the Connecticut River. And so it has to empty out. Now, there's a safety feature at the end of the second level canal that's been there for about a half century, and that's it. That last half mile of it has been emptied, a berm has been put up, and during a flood, if there is one, it can flood over the end of this into the emptied end of the second level canal. This to contain a lot of water. So it has somewhat three different jobs, and that's a lot more complex than the first level canal ever was.
So now, what are some of the mills that were along the canal?
Okay, along the southern end where it met the third level canal, there was one of the Farapacos. There was the Holyoke paper mill. There was a small, tiny silk mill. The biggest mill by far in that section was the Merrick number 1 and number 4. And they had their own exposed tunnel exposed to the air, and you can still see it today. It's a magnificent sight. It's a great sight, and I wish you can go down there and see how it operates. Now, in its midsection, it still has viewable from its side mills that are really should be counted as mills along the first level canal. So in its midsection, since it's receiving water only and not distributing it, there are no true mills using hydromechanical energy. But it's grown up that there are mills there on the western or eastern edge of the second level canal that look like they might be using water, but they don't. So that was, for instance, the Cubic building used to be like that, and the Judd Paper Company used to be like that. And you can see in the distance the start of the Hadley mill, and that's on the northern U shape. And there, that's where the second level canal drops its water in through the races or tunnels into the Connecticut River. So the Hadley mill's there, and then the Valley, the Albion, the Crocker, the Mount Tom. They're all paper mills. Most of them have gone away the past 10 years, but the Valley paper is still there. And then at the very end of its southeast corner, there is a couple more mills. Most importantly, there's the Riverside Mill. But there also used to be the mill that made postcards for the United States. That was the White and Wyckoff Mill. And there also used to be National Blank Book. So there was a lot of cool mills.
Okay, now, so real quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, for our listeners out there, you can check out his site, holyokecanaltour.org. There you can find other podcasts, along with videos of each stop on his various tours, also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout. You can set up private tours with him as well, which make for fun and educational activities for the whole family, or for the special occasion group outings, or also for just a day out. So you can do that by emailing him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. Again, that's BOBCAT4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. So now, getting back to the interview, how has this canal area been improved in the last 20 years?
All right. Now, a lot of changes have come around since the start of the new century. And those changes are positive. You have Gateway City Arts, for instance, and that really has improved the whole of Ray Street and the whole of the Flats neighborhood. You've also had the great development of Open Square, And you've also have along the way going towards the south, the Cubic building now has developed very quickly and very positively. Then the old Holyoke Radiator Company has developed very positive. And I hope that the last thing I want to point out, I hope that the second walkway that was put in about 10 years ago should develop even more. And that you should have a third walkway going from the second walkway up to Campus Street, heading to the east and going all the way to Willamette Bridge. Design plans have been sent in, and a financial plan has been sent into the federal government. But of course, you got to wait on these projects. To get the second level canal in, they waited 10 years. It's only been 5 years since they sent in the plans for this third walkway. So I hope that comes in.
So now also, why is this your favorite canal in the system?
Because both sides of the second level canal, for the most part, are open for people to see and to walk along. And that's not always true of the first level canal, and it's certainly not true of the second level canal. The first level canal, a lot of the area along that canal is private, and only a little bit you get to walk along the sea. The second level canal, I would say about a half of it is public. You can just walk around, and even on the other side, there's nice walkways, and that's great. And the third level canal is a big problem because most of it is private land except for the street, and it's a bit dirty on that side. So the second level canal, with all its beauty and its walkways and all its development in the past 20 years, gets my vote as being the best one of the three.
Okay, so thank you, Robert, again for joining us. And again, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltours.org, or you can set up private tours with him. Or if you have any other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And also be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming 2024 schedule as it becomes available. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to be educated on the Holyoke third level canal. So what is the function of the third level canal?
All right, the third level canal, it's very complex because it's like the second level canal and it has lots of jobs. In fact, it has the most jobs of all. So the first level canal only distributes water. The second takes it in and distributes, and has one tiny safety valve. The third level canal does all three big time, even though it's the shortest one and the most inconspicuous one, and the dirtiest one too. So, what is the function of it? It's an L shape at its western edge. It meets the second level canal, and then there it receives the water through tunnels, most that are underground, and one tunnel is an exposed tunnel, or race, and that's through the Merrick Thread Mill. And so that its first job of all is to take in the water from these big mills. And then it goes towards the east. It's an L shape, so it bends towards the north and heads towards the area of the Willamette Bridge. Now, when it heads to that area, it's parallel to the Connecticut River, so now we can distribute water through mills around that section. And these mills used to be very powerful mills, cardboard mills, like the Chemical Paper Company, the Newton Paper Company, the Excelsior Paper Company, the Franklin. These are mills that wanted to make cardboard or tough paper. And they were able to do that because the drop from this third level canal into the river was 28 feet, a big drop. So the turbines can take that water with a big, powerful amount of water coming down on them and change it into the hydromechanical energy they needed. So its function was two. Now there's a third function. It's also the safety valve of the whole system. It is the lowest of all systems, so if there's a problem, it's the one that's going to build up with water, and so it has to be a safety valve. For that reason, there's never been a hydroelectric station at the output of the third level canal into the Connecticut River. Also, the walls, the safety walls above the third level canal, which you don't have on the first and second level canal. So if there's a flood, the walls are much higher than the canal itself. So it has a three-part job: receives water, distributes water, and safety valve. That's a lot for such a short place and for such a small amount of water, because remember, most of the water has now been going out the Connecticut River through the top of the second level canal. So it's small but powerful.
So, now, what are some of the mills that were along this canal?
Okay, this canal was a favorite of the Newton family. These were four brothers that came from upper parts of northern Massachusetts, and they wanted to make a lot of mills. And they did, and their favorite place was downhill. The chemical paper company was run by James Newton. The Newton Paper Company was run by Moses Newton. And the Excelsior Paper Company was run by a couple of those brothers. One of the brothers, Daniel, loved to make mills, and he did a great job on that one. There was also the Springfield Blanket Company, which didn't make blankets for people, they made blankets for horses. There were many small mills like the Franklin, the Union, and a part of the Riverside number 2 mill was there. All these mills were powerful mills, and they needed that big drop of water. A lot of those mills are still there. They're not around the original names nor making paper, but they're still there as a low level use. So the Sunoco Paper Company is there, and they recycle paper into cardboard crates that can hold glass when it's being shipped. So there's still a lot of use down there, and you still see a lot of activity down in that lower region. So that's great to see.
How will this canal area be improved?
All right, this canal area will be improved if they have a walkway number 3 going from Race Street on the Cabot and right up to the Willimantic Bridge. And the walkway will be on both sides, and it'll include a couple inputs along the way. And then when it gets to the third level canal, where it's called the Stone Arch Bridge, they're supposed to have a little tiny park on both sides. And so it's going to look beautiful someday. But that's maybe 5 years from now, and this is the year 2023. And I predict it will happen, but it's still off in the future. Now, what other kind of future things would happen down there? I hope that they keep using this area as industrial, because Holyoke still needs that industrial power in some of its places. And one thing I think will happen in the future will be that there will be a bikeway along the Canal Street, which doesn't deserve its own walkway because it's too long and there's nothing really beautiful to see. And I wish to have a bike path, bike lane on both sides, on the Canal Street side and on the Water Street side, which is the eastern side. They both deserve to have that, and that has been mentioned in town and city government reports.
Okay, now what was the South Holyoke neighborhood like in the early 1900s?
Right, now this is the toughest neighborhood because people are so congested that there was a lot of diseases, bacteria and viruses that you've heard about, which aren't around very much anymore, would hit. It's like diphtheria and polio and measles and cholera, and then, of course, influenza. People that live too close spread the disease too quickly, and this was probably the worst place in Massachusetts to be, because all these people were spreading diseases. People like in 1918, 1919, during the great influenza pandemic, South Holyoke's death rate was incredible. I looked up the reports. There were 6,000 people living in that neighborhood. 600 of them died within a few months during that influenza pandemic. It was horrifying. So life was harsh back then. But still, if you had looked at pictures of the past, it was very nice because they had beautiful churches and synagogues there. You had nice playgrounds and parks. The transportation system was great. You had the trolley system go right through the neighborhood. That was the first line of the trolley. And the schools were very nice down there. The Precious Blood Church was a gorgeous church. It was taken on, sadly, in 1989. But it looked like a nice neighborhood. It just had great problems with poverty and with diseases.
Okay, well now thank you for joining us again, and again you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org for more information. And also you can set up private tours, or if you have any other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to check out his schedule for